Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode on the podcast. I'm so excited to share this one with you. It was such a deep conversation about healing, about finding your path, about aligning back to your truth so that you can share your gifts with the world. Enlightenment, the spiritual maturity that is needed in today's world. Like, it was just an amazing conversation. Like always, I don't have favorites, but it's always just a really enjoyable conversation. My guest today, Tanya, is multi-passionate. She has so many elements to her that are quite amazing. She is a sound healing practitioner, yoga and meditation teacher, and breathwork guide. She does a lot of things, but in the way of sharing her gifts to help heal the planet. And I've seen her work. I haven't been part of her work, and I've seen it on, the massive scale that she does it on and the impact that it has. It was really awesome to sit down with her and be able to dive deeper into her story, into the things that she believes and she follows, and where she got that information to allow her to follow this path. Some key themes that we discussed in here was her journey to awakening, practicing acceptance and compassion towards others, healing with sound, vibration, and frequency, finding your unique life purpose, and our powerful connection to nature, and so much more. This is just a really amazing conversation, and one that I think makes me look back and go, this is why I share the podcast, because I get to connect with amazing people. I get to have these really profound conversations and get to learn so much. And then I get to share that with others. So if you're listening here right now, I'm so grateful that you're here. This episode is going to get you inspired, and it's going to help you to live a more present, authentic, and heart-centered life. I really enjoyed it. I love sharing these conversations, and I hope you do too. And just quickly before the podcast starts, I want to say a big thank you to everyone that has come over to any of the social media channels and followed myself and the podcast. It means so much. There are so many little clips that I put out, and they're getting a lot of reach right now, which is really awesome. But I love connecting with you. I've had some really beautiful messages and some really nice comments about what people have learned from the podcast. So if that's you, please come across, leave a message. It always means so much to me, and even the guest that comes on. It makes my day, and it makes me feel like I'm also connecting with you, even though you're on the other side of your screen or wherever you're listening or watching from. So again, thank you so much. If you do want to connect further, I do have a lot of cool things coming up. My Conscious Collective community, I've got some events and programs coming up. Go to the link in the show notes or go to my website and you'll see everything there. There is a newsletter as well. That's /community. You'll get all the updates on everything that I'm doing, as well as other fun and exclusive stuff that I've got coming out. So thank you so much and enjoy this episode. There was a post that you put up last night, and it said, "There is no competition. Nobody has your assignment." Explain.
Oh my gosh, I don't know where to begin.
Why did you post it?
Well, I think, as I mentioned to you before we sat down together.
But no one knows that, so you have to explain
I know.
it from the start.
I'm going to explain it from the start. I think in any realm of work, in any area of life, whatever your vocation is, I think you can really get lost sometimes, especially right now, because it's so noisy. As we were mentioning before, especially in the wellness space and on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, and there's so many things, and it's so easy to lose your way and to forget why you do what you do, and then to think you're not doing enough or you should be doing something else. And then also there is that element of when you do succeed, what can happen, and I've experienced it myself, is, externally things reflect that you're holding internally. And there was something that I shared recently, a few months ago, about the crow. I don't know if you saw that one. There's this beautiful story, and it's a metaphor that when you're an eagle and you're flying, crows try to come and get your back and to bring you down. But what happens is when the eagle is so focused on elevating and flying, the crows naturally fall away because they can't exist in that atmosphere. And so in alignment to that, I guess, with there is no competition. No one has your assignment. I think it's so important to stay focused on your vision, on your purpose, on your mission, on what you're doing and what you're bringing, because we all have a unique gift and we all have a unique offering. And I have my story and I have my life and my experiences that have shaped me, as do you. And then the way we show up and teach or share, again, in any area of life, whether it's in relationships or in work, we all bring a unique perspective and a different type of medicine, a different type of offering. And so when you focus on that, when you remember that no one is you and that you have something unique to share, that element of worry and doubt and that noise literally instantly disappears. So it's been like a journey that I've gone through the last few months as I've really evolved in my own personal life, and a beautiful reminder for me to trust that I'm here doing what I'm doing for a reason, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what do you think that reason is? Why do you, what do you do?
What do I do? Oh my
What
gosh,
do
what
you
do I
do?
not do?
What are you most passionate
Look,
about sharing
see,
right
this
now?
is the thing for me. I always struggle with that. I'm never I don't want to put myself in a box. I'm multifaceted. We all are. There's no niche. I don't have a niche as I target this person, because it's not business for me. I think that's a very business kind of mindset. And so what I do now, essentially, through different tools and modalities and offerings, is create spaces for people to feel safe enough to open to reconnect within themselves. And how I do that is through modalities that have changed my life, such as meditation. Key is meditation, breath work, sound healing, even sometimes conversations. Even sometimes it's sharing, speaking. You can heal in sharing stories, and you can heal in feeling safe in someone's energy. So they are all extensions of me, and at the moment that's kind of what I do. And I do that in big groups, I do it in big spaces, I do it with one-on-ones, I do it in retreats, but I kind of I feel like I get breadcrumbs and I follow that. Like when I get an inspired idea where my whole body lights up, and I'm sure you've heard the saying, if it's your calling, it will keep calling you. And I think that's kind of what's happened to me, especially the last decade, but predominantly the last 5 years. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
How did you even get into all this stuff? Because it's there's so many modalities of
goodness me,
healing and transformation and
yeah.
Where was the point where you tried these things and felt the difference?
Yeah.
And then the point of, I want to share this.
Of course. I think for me, I was always this way. So if I go back to when I was born, I was always inquisitive. I was always different, right? I think anyone that does what we do can relate to that. We're the different one in the family. And so I always was so inspired, and I was always into the mystical. And at that time, when I was young, I'm 34 now, the magic scene was quite large. We had Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and we had Charmed, and all these shows, and I resonated so deeply with all of that because I just knew that there was more to life, and I questioned things. And my parents thought it was a phase, but I would literally create rituals for myself, and I would steal my mom's saffron and herbs and make elixirs and herbal tonics. And from a young age, anything I ever did, and I would go sit in the library for hours when I was 8, 9. That was my favorite place to go. I wasn't allowed to check out certain books because I think when you're under 16, some of the books are I don't know what the category is, but I would go sit there and read them, and it was all about this magic and the universe, and I would just I was so mesmerized and immersed in it. And so what I would always do, and I would bring that home, and I would do things in the house to essentially, you could say, healing. So if my parents were fighting or going through something, I would do these things to try and get the bad energy away. Really, I remember one of my memories, it's so funny, I've never shared this, but There was a ritual that it's like if you take a broom and you kind of like, it's like a prayer, but you go into every corner of the house and you dust it away and take it out of the house. It takes all the bad energy away from the house. And I used to do that when I was like 8 years old. So all these little things that I kind of was born with, you could say that I carried with me from a past life, like my awareness. And then I lost that, I think, as I got older. Growing up in a Middle Eastern household, I was born in Iran. I moved here when I was 6 with my family, one of 4 girls. And if anyone's familiar with what's happening in Iran, unfortunately, women are quite suppressed. It is what's happening there in this era of time. And so the whole vision for me that my parents had for me was to be a doctor or a dentist or a lawyer. And I was quite academic as well. I was so creative, but I was very academic. And so because of that pressure and thinking that what I was into was like so bad, I disassociated from that and I went down the path of what I thought I was meant to do. But that element of me always having this ability, you could say, was there, like intuition, or people would joke and say I'm psychic when I was like 15, 16, because I just would know things. So that's always been a part of who I am. Went through various life experiences, which is like a whole other story, but lots of suffering, lots of which again, very normal and common coming from where I come from, which led to me not processing my emotions. I didn't understand until I was older, because it's, as we spoke about before, it's so common now where people speak about the subconscious mind, how the body keeps score, how our beliefs shape our reality. But growing up, that wasn't common information. So I just thought I was the way I was. I just thought I was always going to be depressed. And I went through moments of extreme depression where I wanted to take my life. Like I lived like that up until I was about 28, on and off. And when I met my husband now, who was my boyfriend, he kind of, him and his mum and his family were very much into this world that's kind of very popular now. But he was born into that because his mum is super deep into all of the teachers. And so when I was 17, I got reintroduced to that. And so slowly I was reintroduced to that, and I began reading. One of the first books I read, I loved Dr. Wayne Dyer. As I mentioned, I saw Dr. Joe early on, but I wasn't ready. It wasn't my time because I was still chasing something else. I was not aligned to my path. So this mission, what I'm doing now was always there, but I rejected it. Because I was like, no, I'm going to do these things. And so it wasn't until I was 28, and I always say it's like by divine intervention, like the hand of God, I went to a 7-day Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation retreat. And I had so much resistance the week before. I did not want to go. So much was going on in our life. My partner's father had just passed away. Very sadly, suddenly we had so much to do, like to bring everything together with the family business. And I was like, it's the worst time. Like, I don't want to go. I remember like being so resistant on the plane even. I was like, I'm going to go home. But then when I got there, it was like, ding, like something just clicked. And when the first lecture, and I was 28 at that time, I remember my whole body started to like vibrate. It was like I was downloading information, and I didn't know what was going on at that time. And so from that moment, I had kind of, tried meditation before, but not properly. And from that day, I committed to meditating every single day. And then 6 months later is when I had my very big spiritual experience that some people say is like a Kundalini awakening, and all of that. It was so big, it was so profound and extreme that I remember like when it happened, like for days I couldn't sleep. For days I had energy going through my body. But I say I was reborn in that day, in that moment. And so that was about almost 6 years ago. And then since then, all these things that I've kind of delved back into, like the breath work at that time and meditation and sound. Sound's always been therapeutic for me, which I can explain a little bit later, but that's when it started. That's when I kind of went back on my path that I was always meant to be on, that I deviated from. So yeah, in a very short nutshell, short-ish. It's so like there's so much.
You could do a 24-hour podcast.
It's a lot. I want to do. I want to give it just. I want to explain it. But it's a big stories there. There's stories within stories.
That's for a live event, a 2-week
One
retreat.
day.
Yeah,
one day, everyone. But yeah,
I find it so interesting that we all have different timing and different timing of when you can hear the same message twice, but in that first time you might not be ready to hear it, or you might not be aware enough to hear it. What was different for you? Was it just
I couldn't tell you. That's where I truly believe we are divinely guided. Like I believe in God now. I didn't for a long time, because all I knew and felt was suffering. And I thought, what's the point of life if it's just suffering? So I was so disconnected. This was so closed off, like numb to some degree for a long, long part of my life. And it wasn't until I opened this energy center that my life changed. And it's just a knowing that I truly feel like you can't explain unless you experience it. I can try and explain it in all the ways, but unless you allow yourself to feel it, and once you know it, you can't not know it. So I don't know exactly why. Is it karma? Maybe. Is it divine timing? Maybe. Is it the Saturn route? I don't know. There's so many things it could have been. But for my path, for my journey, that was the perfect time for it to happen. It couldn't have happened earlier. It wasn't meant to happen later. And so I really believe in trusting and surrendering and having faith, because I'm 34 now. And, when you're young in your 20s, you think 34 is like, oh my gosh, right? But I feel like my life is just beginning, especially as a woman. I'm married, I don't have kids, but my life just looks really different. And I'm so excited and I'm so in love with life. And so to be the way I am now, I never thought I would be. Like I never even knew that existed because I was never exposed to it. And there was no examples of it. So I can't tell you why. And I'm in this space, and the way I am now, I don't try to figure it out. I'm very much in the present. And I think that's where my practices come in and allow me to trust the moment and know that it will always unfold as it's meant to, because it's going to happen the way it's meant to. If it was meant to happen another way, it wouldn't happen.
That's so easy to say. But to integrate that and to trust that, like, I was saying this before, like there's been lots of different moments in my life, especially through, being 30 now, through my 20s, there were just pivotal moments of like identity crisis, of awakening, of rock bottom, of this. And only in the hindsight, I can look back and be like, well, that, of course that needed to happen. It was literally God, universe, whatever, going, you're going too far that way and you're not listening. I'm going to have to, or whatever divine timing of, I'm going to bring you back here. It's not to be like, you're not going to like this, it's going to be painful, whatever. It's you're attaching to it being a certain way and thought it was going to be that way. But now that I look back, it's always been bringing me back to my values. It's always been bringing me back to that sense of truth. And we were talking before about that trust that we have now, the stuff that we do, because social media and everything's so do it this way and it has to be this way. And if it's not done this way, then it's not right. And purpose is this. And it's like, but if it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right. And I think people are awakening to that.
People are much more aware now, which it's amazing. Yeah. But what is that saying? That you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. And I do believe that some parts of our experience are necessary. It's the initiation into evolution. Yeah. You can't change unless you're challenged. I truly believe that. And what you do with your challenges dictate your future. Like, do you overcome them? Do you become more resilient, more open, more loving? Or do you let the challenges consume you, break you down, close your heart more? Because the more you close your heart, you close it to good things too. And so it is very easy to say. And I wouldn't be saying this 6 years ago, probably not even a couple years ago, when I was still going through figuring out who I am. But I think this whole idea of purpose right now, it's so amplified in a negative way. Your life is your purpose.
Yeah.
Your life is your purpose. Whatever you do, it doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be what anyone else tells you it is. And so once I accepted that, it's when doors started opening. Once I kind of stepped back and I was like, I'm just going to trust that the doors will open when they're meant to. And I always say this with what I do. It's who I am. So I'll always be doing this, whether I'm teaching it to the public or doing it for myself. And I'm okay with that. If tomorrow it changed, I'm okay with that because I know it doesn't define who I am. What I do is not who I am. What I do and how people perceive me is not who I am. And so we need to stop putting such pressure on ourselves to think that who we are and what we do defines us. And I think in the spiritual community, in that world, it's very easy to do that. You go from one way of people saying, oh, you're not what you do, you're not your work, you're not your 9 to 5, but then they kind of still bring that belief system into this world of this community. Like, what do you do? Like, what modalities do you? What tools do you do? What retreats have you done? How many ceremonies have you had? You can get really lost in that. And I think it's so important to step back and go to the simplicity of the truth, which is you truly have all the answers within you, and finding the right techniques, tools, modalities for you. As I know you said, for you, it's sitting in the sauna. For me, sometimes it's just sitting outside and staring at the sky. That gives me that self-reflection, that introspection, connecting with nature. It's reconnecting with yourself, with the law of the universe, the cosmic laws of the universe. Like, I love that the sun will rise and set either way. Flowers know when to bloom. The ocean tides come. There's such a divine order to things, and knowing that we're part of that. We're part of that because when we leave our body, this beautiful machine that we are in, that our consciousness is in, it reemerges, it goes back into the soil, it becomes part of that again. And you shouldn't have to wait for that to happen to experience that, yes, you too are part of this divine cosmic order. And just trusting that, like, something breathes for you. Right now, your organs are functioning. Without your awareness, you're not telling your heart to pump. You're not telling your lungs to breathe. So what is that energy? It's within us. And I think the more we surrender to that and start to quiet down the noise and remove the stimulus and the stimuli, like your phone and all that noise, that's when that part of you that's always been there, your truest self, people call it your higher self, your God self, it will emerge. It's there. It's just us that gets in the way because we're so distracted.
I don't think I've ever met someone, unless they don't like, dirt, that's been out in nature, near a waterfall or near like something with high energy, even just walking in a grassy area. Like, I've lived in sort of suburban sort of areas, but whenever there's like a bit of grass, you go sit on it, you're just naturally going to feel nicer. Last year I lived in Mildura, like my hometown, and there's this beautiful river that goes by, and there's a beautiful like nature walk. And my parents live not bush, but very rural. And it's like you walk along the road and there's not all this noise. And I live right now in a very busy sort of part of Melbourne, and it's like there's trams, there's cars, it's non-stop. And of course, I'm going to feel like overwhelmed with so much stimulus because it's everywhere. But when I go, haven't been in a long time because Melbourne hasn't been warm enough, but to the beach or out into somewhere of nature and just, you sit in the trees and sit in nature, you feel good.
You do.
And when you don't have your phone on you and you're taking photos of all the nature and you're just I think that's been the lesson for me in the past 12 months has been, I used to be like, if I'm sitting in the sauna, I've got to be listening to a podcast or binaural beats or this or that. And I think binaural beats are a bit different, but I had to be productive, optimization. Like if I'm doing a walk and a podcast and sipping vitamin water or whatever, I'm hitting 7 things at once. And it used to be like, how many things can I cram into the one thing so I'm making the most use of my time? Now it's just like, can I just sit in the sauna? And because if I'm focusing on something else, I'm not being present in that. And I think whenever we, a challenge for the listeners, if you can just remove everything and just do the one thing and be very present in that, you're naturally just going to feel
so
nice.
much better. Yeah.
And that whole, we had a big rant before the podcast about, listening to yourself and finding those answers and this, every episode I've mentioned this, but the sauna it was just sitting in darkness. The steam does something else for me. I don't know whether I like that little bit of a challenge or that little bit of resistance that made me, I guess, have to feel something else in the sauna, but it allowed me to just listen. Yeah. Feel, listen, be, and then, as I said to you, like everything's being shown to me every day. Yeah. I go in there with a question and I come out with the answers. If I go to YouTube or Google or social media, it's so many people's agendas.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise. Yeah. It's just distractions. They're all distractions. That's all it all is. It's a machine. Yeah. And you have to know when to plug out and to rest and recharge. And
you were saying before, like you took a bit of time to unplug from social media and all those things. Like I think we feel that, I know I've felt it. If I unplug, I'm going to miss out. I'm going to fall behind.
Yeah.
How do you unplug without feeling that?
I think, well, it's an interesting thing. I think for me, it's still an energetic exchange. So being on social media, we become entangled with one another's energy and we absorb. And a lot of times people will be mindlessly scrolling. And when we do that, we're actually in a very hypnotic state because our brainwaves have slowed down. So we will kind of take whatever someone's saying and it just keeps feeding the computer and filling up. And that's why I think people become overwhelmed because it's all this information that's not being processed. And depending on what you watch, you will end up believing that. And so for me, unplugging, it's a practice of self-care. I have to be able to show up for what I do at this point in my life, what I'm doing. I have to have practices, and I call it purification processes, so that I'm not overwhelming my system. So that when I show up to teach, whoever, whatever, wherever I am, or if I have to be in relationships and dynamics with family, I'm showing up clear. And so that's a priority for me. And so because that's more valuable for me than fear of missing out, I think there's a new thing called joy of missing out, JOMO. I'm like, ooh, I relate to that. Like there is nothing more I like to do than be in my own energy. Like I spend a lot of time alone. And I'm never alone. We're never alone. But lots of time self-reflecting by myself. And so unplugging from social media is just necessary for me at this point in time. And it's healthy. It's allowed me to have less distractions, less noise, less chaos. Being able to hear these messages and inspirations like what I shared. That's common. It's something that, it's a quote that's been going around for a long time, but it's not a competition. No one has your assignment. Because if you get too lost in that world, you'll forget. It's very easy to forget. And so my practices allow me to remember every day.
I always think about or I've always been told, or maybe it was something that I consumed that was like, whatever you're consuming, you will then start to believe. And I've noticed that with different mentors or idols or speakers where I've watched their content and I've started to, naturally, if that's what's going into your head and that those are affirming those thoughts. And I think there's ways that can be powerful and inspiring, but I think that there's ways where it's like that can take you so far away from your own truth because it's not even you. And I've, listened to people speak or even been in conversation, we'll talk about this before, where they're just saying the right things. They're repeating what other people are saying. They've got all the, the fancy terminology and the sayings that make sense. Like, I used to listen to a lot of Jim Rohn. Do you know Jim Rohn?
No.
Very much in the personal development sales, but like passed away in early 2000s. So very late 90s. But he would say things really well and they'd be catchy and I'd pick up on those things and I'd be speaking from there. But if we're not aware of what we're watching, consuming, listening to, it can give different messages. And you probably know way more about this than I do about the hypnosis, the brain waves, all of this.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Tell me more.
Oh, it's like, where do you begin? I mean, I guess someone that explains it so well is Dr. Joe Dispenza. But with all of that, like even with that, even with some of these incredible teachers and facilitators, I think again it's really important not to idolize anyone and to really do your own research. We live in an age where we're so lucky. We have access to information at the click of our finger. Your phone, books, library, YouTube, podcasts. And I think I mentioned it before. It's a kind of slight deviating from what you asked, but it's so important to go back to the simple truths of things. And with most of the, I would say the mystics and the masters and the sages and the people that inspire me, like Paramahansa Yogananda and Neville Goddard and even Wayne Dyer, they all emphasize the power of your mind, the power of your thoughts, and that your thoughts create your reality.
That's the first sentence.
All of them.
Think and Grow Rich. Yeah.
It's across so many different, very powerful books, very inspirational people. They tell you to control your thoughts. They tell you to stand guard at your mind and not to allow one single thought in that you don't want to experience. And it's so simple, but it's actually the hardest thing to do. It's the hardest thing to do because I don't know the exact number. I know we have thousands of thoughts a day. How many of them are true and how many of them are ours? And that's where meditation comes in, because you start to train yourself to take that attention away from everything and everyone that tells you all these things and start to trust what you know or the information that you know to be true. And that's where intuition plays a big part. That's been something that people have been asking me a lot lately, like, how do you know it's your intuition? And intuition, I truly believe it's like a full sensory experience. It's a knowing. It's not a thought. It's not a thought. It's not like I think this about someone, because that usually is potentially self-sabotage, a limiting program. There's something going on there. You just know. When you have these moments of just knowing things, and the more you train that muscle, the more you'll start to know what's true about what people say and know what's not true. And right now, I think people are so much more aware, as we spoke about before. I always say people feel you before they hear you, because we all have extrasensory abilities that for whatever reason we're not tuned into and we're not practicing and we're not using. But we all have these abilities. We can all do it. Everyone can do it. And so now I think with all these people out there and all these teachers, people are starting to really wake up to what's true and what's not, and questioning. I think questioning in a healthy way is really good. I think questioning things because you're genuinely curious. But if you're questioning things from a very closed-minded perspective, you're only going to get an answer that you're comfortable with. And with what you're comfortable with, generally, it doesn't mean it's true. So I think it's just learning to trust yourself. And going back to the simple books, going back to the really simple things, the simple teachings. If people are watching all of these things and getting confused and overwhelmed, I think it's a sign to unplug for a day, for a week, for however long you can, to truly take that attention away from someone else and turn it into your own self. Yeah.
It's that whole conversation we had about, like, you have all the answers within, and why do you think people struggle to listen to that? Yes, the noise, but I think people know that.
I think it's conditioning. I think from a young age we've been taught to seek outside of ourselves in many cultures, you know, and we emulate what we're shown, and everything conditions us, not just our parents and our culture, but our teachers, our friends, the shows we watch. So everything is continuously hypnotizing us, you could say, to seek externally. Buy this, you'll feel better. Do this, you'll feel better. Come and do this retreat. Do this. So it's always outside of ourselves. And I do think that retreats and all these beautiful modalities have their place, but at the end of the day, you need to take that information home with you, and you need to integrate it and become one with it and embody it. So it is who you are, and practice it. It's practice, it's consistency, it's discipline, it's dedication. So many people, you know, they go to the gym. They've been like lifting weights. I was a PT for a long time as well. Like, they'll dedicate hours. Yeah, I've done so many things, but they'll dedicate hours to their body, but they won't do that for their mind, because they need to see instant results. But I share, and it's something that I remind myself of, and a lot of clients that I work with. If you've thought one way for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, do you think you're going to change in a day? That thought that you have, that habit that you have? The same way that when you go to the gym, if you've been eating really bad and really abusing your body for 30, 40 years, do you think that you're going to be able to squat 100 kilos the first day, or get whatever vision or goal you have for your body? No. How long does it usually take? Months, right? Usually takes months. And to do it in a healthy way, I would say even years. So why won't people apply that to their mind and their spirit? I think it's that thought that it has to be instant. The fad trend, the fad diet, the pill that they're going to give you, the experience that they'll give you to instantly change. It's never like that. And I can speak from personal experience and really studying and reading and about people that inspire me. They've been through the hero's journey multiple times sometimes, and that's inspiring for me. Yeah.
You said that you'll know when it's true for you when someone's saying something. Is it when you're hearing someone say something, or you're listening to something, is it a matter of it's true for you, or it's ultimate truth?
I think both, because depending on where we are in our life experience and our level of awareness, and I don't like to say level of consciousness, but there is an element of spiritual maturity that I'm noticing within myself and others, depending on how long you've kind of been practicing that muscle, right? It's a journey, as we were talking about before. People that come out and say, I'm at a higher awareness than you. You have like that to me doesn't feel like God. It doesn't feel like love. And it's in no book that I've read that has inspired me, no teacher that has been the true embodiment of that energy ever has talked that way. And so it does depend on where you are in your journey, because some truths they are the ultimate truth, but it can take time to get there. Even with things I believe now, I would not have agreed to years ago, because I wasn't there. I didn't have the awareness to understand that information. It's like a different language. So I think just honoring where you are on your journey, and if something feels right for you in that moment, accept it and know that you can evolve beyond it and not attach so heavily to one idea. I think it's really important to not identify just with one truth, because there's infinite truths within the truth. Yeah.
And everyone's got their own truth to it. And I think that comes from like I guess what I've been noticing for myself is trying to be as open as I can. Like if someone, we could both experience the same situation, but your truth to it is going to be different to mine, or your experience is going to be different to mine. It doesn't mean that you're right, I'm wrong, I'm right, you're wrong. It's just different. And
Yes.
you know, I was sharing more specifically about TikTok and comments before, but even with people and you know, when I see people share, and I love hearing people share their way of being, but whenever I've seen or heard of someone being like, okay, this is what happened, and black and white, this. It has to be this way. You should do this. You need to do this. I've always had this like one side of it's like, don't tell me what to do. But two is also like, who are you to decide that that's the thing? Like if someone goes left or right, why is it right or wrong? Like for example, wherever you are in life, anyone that's listening or watching, like you could stay in the same job. Who's to say if that's right or wrong? Like to someone, they might be like, no, I'd rather
100%.
stop that and go to something different. Or another person might say, I'll stay in that for a little bit longer until, you know, I feel like it's the right time to do it. Like where, like, I feel like it's so, there's so much black and white when I go, it can be, I'm not going to say grey, but like things are just, there's multiple truths.
You have to become accepting and have compassion and grace for people for where they are. I think they think the way they do for a reason. And if you truly want to inspire them to change, it's important to lead by example and not by force. And that's how I live. Yeah. And so I have friends and I have family, and especially with COVID and everything I do now, there was so much resistance. And it was a beautiful learning experience for me of acceptance. Like, I see you, I accept you. If I don't agree with you, I still accept you. Yeah. And I hold a vision of a different outcome for you, but it's your choice. Everyone has free will. Yeah. And I think that's such, again, I think it's spiritual maturity. And I think it's a way of being that's an extension of living heart-centered. Because when we're heart-centered, we accept everybody, and we believe everyone can change. Like, I truly believe if someone wants to change, they can. But if you're trying to force them to, what happens when someone tells you must do something? Naturally, that inner child in all of us is like, absolutely not. Walls go up. But if it's an invitation, that's what I say. It's always an invitation. You're welcome to. You can decline. It's there. Yeah. And I think that's the way I try to live. And what's happened and I speak anecdotally, but in my own relationship, especially with my family, it's taken time, but being that way has literally allowed them to find their own way as well. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so easy when you learn a new thing to want to share it and say like, I've found the way. I've found whether it's God, whether it's some spiritual practice or whatever, like this is the way, you need to do this.
It's good intentions, I think. A lot of that, sometimes 100%. Maybe not, but most of the time I think people have really good intentions.
Unless they're saying like, I found this and it's $99 a month, or it's a $6,000 program that you got to do. Yeah. You've got to go to Tony. Yeah. Love Tony. Yeah. But
no, I know. Like I was the same when I went to Dr. Joe. I was like talking about it, and he's incredible and his work is amazing, but it's not for everyone. Yeah. Right now, it is for some people are open to it, some people are not. I planted the seeds. I always say I plant seeds, and then it'll grow if it's meant to, if it's fertilized by the person. But you got to let that be.
And we can't water everyone's garden. Like I love that saying of like planting seeds, and I think that was. In a non-beautiful way, it was, in network marketing, it was like a sales thing, plant the seeds. But now it's more like plant the seeds of, like for me, like with this podcast, there's no end game to it where I'm like, I'm going to get to 1,000 and it's going to pay me this. It's just, I'm sharing conversations. And like the clips on all the different platforms, there's no go to the link in my bio and there's a program or buy this ticket. Maybe there will be one point, but right now it's like just sharing. And if people are seeing it, then isn't that a seed of good intention?
Yes.
And that's what I've always seen all these conversations to be. And I think that's where I've loved, whether it was community or all these things, is just planting those seeds of your purpose is to be you, and you can plant those seeds in whatever you do.
Whatever you do. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How you were talking about sound
Mm.
and vibration and
Vibration.
frequency and
Yes.
all those things. Tell me more. Why are you
Oh my goodness.
passionate about
I
this?
mean, music has always been therapeutic for me since I was young, and it's cultural too. Music is very big in my culture. Like my mum, she could have been a professional singer, so I grew up with music and deep, meaningful music, and I listen to all genres of music. I think the only genre I've never really gotten into is like a metal music, but everything else, like if you go on my Spotify playlist, I listen to 60 genres. But it's always been part of me. And what I love about sound and music, which I'll get into the sound and the science of it, but music is universal. It brings everyone together. Like one song can literally reach every country and everyone will relate to it and they'll sing along to it and they don't even know the words. It's the energy of the music. It transcends culture. It transcends everything. It brings everyone together. And that's why I think with music and sound, it's for everyone. Everyone can relate to it. There's no, with some things, I think people get a little bit, they disassociate or they get resist if you use certain words. But with sound, when you get to the science element of it, it's something that I truly believe works for everyone. Because when you work with frequencies and different instruments and tools and you create these very coherent symphonies, you could say harmonics, what happens is it entrains your brainwave. That's what it does. That's why it works. So the way I work with sound is working with different frequencies, creating binaural beats with different instruments as well that are tuned differently. And what that does is signals to your brain to slow the waves down. And what happens is when you slow your waves down, you switch your nervous system from fight or flight to rest and renewal. And your body is so intelligent. Our bodies are full of wisdom. They know what to do. They know how to heal. When you cut yourself, you don't tell that cut to heal. It knows to heal. Again, we get in our own way. And so with sound, allowing that space, allowing that entrainment, and then through the process of resonance where your body begins to, like a tuning fork, like instruments, your body begins to resonate with the frequency and the sound. It creates such a beautiful visceral experience for every single person to get exactly what they need, what their body needs for their own intelligence, for their own healing abilities to kick in. And so that's why I'm so passionate about sound, about the science of sound. But I also think it's just universal. And they say sound is, the medicine of the future, but it's the medicine of the past. It's actually ancient. All the cultures and lineages before us, and some that are hidden, they're finding out things about how sound created the pyramids. Like there's all these things that are coming out, and there's much more that we still don't know. It's an ancient technology. It's just re-emerging, and they use sound with kidney stones and with different technologies in hospitals now. Like it's so incredibly fascinating to me, and so that's why I also think it's just a natural extension of me. I always say our bodies are our first instrument, and then what we play creates our orchestra. So it's an extension of me. Whatever I play, whatever instrument I tune into that I align with, it's an extension of the energy I hold within my instrument. And then that creates a space for people to come and experience deep states of connection, of healing, of revelation, of connection, of healing in their own way. Sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it can be physical. I don't make grand statements. There's a lot of science and there's a lot of studies being done now about the biofield, about tuning the field of the body, that we all have an electromagnetic field. But to keep it really simple, I just think it's universal, it's safe, it's coherent, it's a pleasant experience. Sometimes it can be unpleasant, and I explain this when I do my classes at the Loom in Melbourne, but it's open to the public, so I get people coming all ages, all demographics, all backgrounds, all occupations, and I love that at the end I speak to people who are like, I don't know, like I had a psychiatrist once, and I get different people that are like, oh my goodness, I had this experience, my body was doing this, I saw this, is that normal? I'm like, yes, it's that divine intelligence within you. You've allowed it to awaken, and it's showing you things, it's clearing things for you. And with the healing element of it, as we know in the chakra system, you know, energy centers of the body, when there's blockages, people develop problems in certain areas of the body. And sometimes with sound, a sound bath is essentially a sensory experience of healing vibration. That's why it's called a sound bath. Your body's being bathed in the vibrations and the frequencies. And if something's a very high frequency, and let's just say disease or low energy or states of being such as depression, anxiety, are low energy, let's just say that, your body will begin to resonate with that tone, and it has to meet that tone, that resonance. And so what can happen is if there's a blockage, it can be uncomfortable. So some people have sometimes like discomfort or pain or big emotional releases. Sometimes people will get angry, but it's because it's something there that's trying to be washed and purified away. I can go like full deep into the sound of things, but first and foremost, as a facilitator, my body is my first instrument, which is why it's so important that I have my practices to keep me a pure conduit of that energy. It's not me doing anything. I step out of the way. I align myself with an energy bigger than me that I call God or consciousness or universe, creator. And I ask every time when I sit in service, in that offering, it's a gift. I'm so blessed that I get to do something I love, that I facilitate the highest expression and space for each and every single person that sits in that room. And it's nothing to do with me. I don't have a set. I don't follow. It's all very intuitive. It's different every time. I read the room, I read the energy, I call it in, and it's different every time.
So bad luck if you went to one and you want to share the same one,
but
it'll be read. Yeah.
I tell people you'll get what you need. And it's been beautiful because there's been so many people that have come that first saw it because it looked really pretty. You know, they're like, oh my gosh, it looks so, and
the projectors.
Yeah, it's stunning. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for that opportunity. And then they'll have beautiful experiences. Or when I hear people that have been dragged, like a lot of men or boys, they'll come because their mum dragged them, and I love that. They're like, and they're like, I needed this so much, thank you, because they find it hard to meditate, or they've never even been exposed, right? Because even we're talking about this community we're in, we think it's everywhere, but it's not. It's everywhere to us because it's normal for us. There are still a lot of people that are not aware or exposed that these things exist to help them. And so I'm so grateful that I have a platform and I have the opportunity to share that with people, because it truly has been healing for me. I started working with sound instruments 5 years ago for myself after having a profound experience, and then it evolved into studying sound healing, and then sharing it with my friends. There was something there, and then the path was created. I just trusted, and I just go where I'm called. Yeah.
There's a lot of themes of like trusting and following that path of like it'll navigate you. You might not know where it's going to end up, but it's like if you trust it, then like I can have the biggest and grandest vision for my life, but I also have to trust that I'll be navigated to exactly where it needs to go. Mm-hmm. I think what did I say? It was this quote that I seen yesterday or heard yesterday. It was like, if the intention is clear, then the path will show itself. Mm-hmm. Or like, you don't have to worry about others or anything else. Like you will just, that path will be revealed to you. Mm-hmm. And that's where connecting to your intuition, you're listening to yourself. Like these themes are like everything that keeps coming up for me. Every conversation I'm having, it's that inner wisdom of stop going to these outside things to get the answer. It's they can provide a answer. I'm not going to say it's right or wrong, but it's like you have it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't unplug from all these things, you won't allow yourself. If you don't unplug and come to the loom and sit in a stage, you won't feel it. Like it.
Yeah.
Because I've been in the industry for a long time. I say long time, 8 years or so. I feel, again, you said this before, I feel like everyone's done these things. But I think lately, or since COVID, because everything got ramped up because everyone was trying things finally, because we were at our lowest or at a point where we needed to try something, things got so popular, intention dropped or was lacking, and things were just done because it was the fad or the popular thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to something where it's authentic and you feel it, you go, damn. It's like in the ceremonies I've sat, the sound healings I've sat in, even the yoga classes I've been to, you feel it that it's different. Not that I had this grand, crazy experience. It's just, you just felt good.
Mm-hmm.
And even with, you were saying about binaural beats, so that's how I learnt to meditate. Was I've got this app on my phone, can't tell you what it is because I don't off the top of my head, but you can choose which frequency, you can have a background sound if not, what mood you want to be in, and I just listen to that. And so that, okay, can you explain, because I don't know, because that's not my body. Like if you're in a sound bath, because it's waves around your entire body, or if you've got your headphones on, is it still affecting you? If you're listening to a sound bath with your headphones on?
It's actually more effective with two types. So listening with headphones and with speakers surrounding you. Because sound travels not just through the ears, the auditory system, but through bone.
The vibration.
Through bone.
Yeah.
It conducts through bone and through the nerve endings of the body. Yeah. And the way binaural beats work is it's one frequency being played technically in one ear, another frequency being played in the second ear. They're different hertz. They cancel each other out and create one wave and one frequency. That's how a binaural beat works to entrain the brain. Yeah.
Interesting.
I know.
So many things that we could just talk for hours about. But that's so interesting. So you can do it. There's just multiple ways. So headphones still have a great impact.
Yes.
Because that was the one thing I was worried about is whenever I've shared anything or, even when I had my app, I was like, what do you tell everyone to go buy these crazy headphones so they can actually experience it? Or is it just like a more in-depth version?
It depends on the sound. If you're working with sound, both is optimal. Yeah. But either way works. Yeah. And it depends on if it's many factors, but yeah.
So just come and experience, in person.
Just be open, curious, playful. Yeah. Some people love it, some people don't, some people fall asleep. Yeah, I'm definitely that person. It's like in my meditations, it's so interesting getting comments where it's like, I either cried or fell asleep. And I'm like, they're two very not necessarily ones that I want to hear, but thank you. And I think because with meditating, I realized a lot of people do it lying down or they'll do it in bed, and your mind associates your bed with sleep. So really, you should create a sacred room or a corner or a space.
A pillow,
sit
cushion,
up straight. You want your spine to be nice and tall. The channel of energy. Yeah. So you're alert. Unless you lie down, you can place a pillow, like yoga nidra as well, under your knees. But it depends. I think when I started meditating, if I did long ones, I would doze off depending on the time, and I would just catch myself. But you again, it's practice. You kind of entrain your body and your mind to know it's time to meditate, to get into those lower brainwave states without falling asleep. Yeah. And crying, I still cry sometimes when I meditate. It's a release of energy. Yeah. Me too. Yeah. Sauna, it's the best. Crying. It's sweat, I promise. It's public, so like anyone can go in the apartment. Crying is beautiful. Just me and my sweat and my tears. Yeah. You said before a while ago that when you're listening to certain sounds and frequencies,
relaxes your nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Is that then the place where the body can heal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because most of us live in survival mode. So that's your sympathetic nervous system. And there's a lot of talk about nervous system. So many ways to regulate the nervous system. But generally speaking, especially I think in the Western culture, we're constantly either thinking about our past or anticipating our future or thinking of all the things we have to do, right? We live in a time where we're all so responsible for so many things. It's not like we just have one job. People have multiple jobs or multiple relationships to take care of. It's like so much constantly. And then add to that your phone and all that we absorb and the overwhelm. And so our body is not actually ever relaxed. And so what happens is with sound, because it alters your brain waves, and what happens when you fall asleep at night, to fall asleep, your brain waves slow down. They go into the alpha, to the theta, to the delta. And so sound, and especially sound baths that are quite soothing, and the ones that are quite harmonic and overtoned. So there's a difference between performative sound as well. There's sound journeys that are more, you're awake. You'll know you're awake because it's more activating for the nervous system. There are some sounds, and they're introspective, but I wouldn't say they're sound healing because there's an element of coherence that has to take place to switch your nervous system to that parasympathetic state. And so more with the overtones and the harmonics, so the alchemy bowls, the gong, the Tibetan bowls, these instruments create that effect in the brain, and then that allows your body to feel safe, to slow down, to switch off, and then that's where healing takes place, when you're resting. And I think because most of us don't even rest, sometimes even when we're sleeping, and I think it's the aura ring. I don't know, that people use that stuff. And they're like, oh, I slept, but it said I wasn't asleep, because your body is not relaxed. It's not in a state of rest. And so I think finding techniques and tools and ways of doing things, for me, sometimes it's just listening to the sound of rain. When I'm unwell, if I can't sleep, I will literally have one video, and it's just one ambient pad, which is like, because I create music too, and it's rain sounds, and I'll put it on, and within 5 minutes I fall asleep, and it always works for me. So it's just finding ways that work for you. You'll know, you'll feel it. You'll feel like, oh, but then some sounds can be quite activating, and they can be more energizing. The gong can create quite the more expansive and contractive state when someone knows how to play the gong. You can't just hit the gong. There's techniques to how to play the gong. There's building up the energy, because you don't want to just crash the gong. So yeah, different sounds, which maybe you've experienced. I've seen it. It's really important to take your time with sound. I always say this as well, to be careful with sound, because just because someone plays an instrument and they say it's sound healing, it doesn't mean it is. Sound can also disrupt and destroy depending on the frequency and the tones and the chords. So there's things to be conscious of there. Yeah, especially with music. That's a whole different thing. Just be really, yeah, got to be very aware of what we listen to.
What we consume.
All the time.
Yeah.
Sound.
What people are saying, what you're listening to, there's things that I'm very blessed that I've became very aware of that and heard certain things that told me that, yeah, just be very conscious of it, because, if you listen to something, be conscious of it, because whatever you're listening to is then affecting you.
You're absorbing it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you do what you do? Why does Tanya choose to create these safe places for people to heal?
My gosh, there's many levels and layers. I think when I think back to my journey and when I started, I think the way I approach everything I do, any class, any session, any space, any retreat, is that younger version of me. What did she need? Because I didn't have access to that what did she need, especially as a woman in this space? This is why I work with men, but primarily with women. It's a different energy to feel safe and held by a woman and not to say men and women. I'm not saying that, but for me, what I needed, that's definitely one component of it. But I never thought I would be doing this. And everyone's like, how do you mean? I'm like, I genuinely, like this was not on my vision board 5, 6, 7 years ago. I come from a different background. Like I was a PT, I was a model, acted. I did a lot of things. I had so many big opportunities in that world. That wasn't my path. I'm so grateful that I didn't go down that path. It wasn't my path. It wasn't what I was meant to do. And I did have psychic friends that would always tell me that I would do things like this. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, no. Like, am I going to get this audition? Like, am I going to get, like, is this, like, I would be like, don't tell me that. Like, it never, clicked for me. But I truly believe, and I mentioned it earlier, but when it's your calling, it will keep calling you. Like, I know I'm guided by something bigger than me. It's not about me. And I say that all the time because I really want people to remember that about me and anyone else. It's not about the person. We're just conduits. We're bridges. We're friends. We're messengers. We found the way and we want to show you. That's how I see it. Like I found the way and now I want to show you the way if you want the way out. And I share that through books that I've read, through what I teach, through how I speak, through things that inspire me. Things that I share on social media are things I need to remember too. I don't ever want to be talking at someone. I'm talking with someone. So a lot of the times the inspired things that come through me is something that I've just gone through or received, and I share it. And if it reaches one person, even if that one person is me, that's enough for me. But because that's how I approached it, it started to grow and grow and grow and grow. And that people would just come. They would just come. I started doing this almost 6 years ago with my friends, 2 or 3 girlfriends up in my room in my little studio space because I loved it. And I'm like, let's meet. Let's do this. I don't want to go out. Like, let's do this. And then it just evolved from that. And I became more inspired. I love to learn. I'm a student first, a teacher second, always. And I think that's what kind of keeps me going. I feel guided. I truly do. And as long as I'm guided, I'll go where I'm called. And if it changes, if it pivots and I'm meant to go, my dream, which is like to go off grid and like have like a farmhouse and like a porch and a garden and have no social media presence, I'm good with that too. And I think because I'm in that space, I know it's something bigger than me because the doors just keep opening. The doors just keep opening. The doors just keep opening. They do. And I'm like, wow. Sometimes they're big things that I get and I'm like, can I even do this? And I only can because I'm so tuned in. I truly believe I'm mission driven. That's what it is. I'm mission driven. It's nothing else.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Opening.
If you had one, you said it just then, if you had one last social media post that you could put up and it was your last message to everyone to see, you're okay, you've just gone on your little farmhouse and disconnected from social media. It's the last post. What would your message be? Apart from goodbye, but yeah.
It'd just be 3 words probably. Probably just 3 words. Live your life. Just live it. It wouldn't be that. I wouldn't want to go too deep into it. And that's what I would be doing. And I think for me, I like the real world. I like the world. I don't want to escape the world like I did before. And so social media is a great tool to connect people. I've built some amazing friendships and I have such a beautiful community on there. And it's not about the virality. I don't care about my reach. I've never had a business profile, so I don't know I don't know that stuff, and I don't need to know. And I think people that potentially have, followed my journey from how I was to now, they already know my pattern, that I'll disappear. There's no, they know that Tanya's gone. She's gone offline. And just to live your life. And I know it's so cliche because everyone's like, live your life to the fullest, but it's true. Like, don't get so caught up in healing and reaching a destination. You'll never get there, because you'll get there and then there's something else that you want. It will always elude you. So be present and live now. That would probably be my... Is that 5 words? Be present and live now. Yeah, simple.
Beautiful. Great way to wrap up our
our spiel.
Big conversation here. Thank you.
Thank you
for coming all this way. We've rescheduled a few times, but we're here.
It was timing.
It was, and it's always the right timing. And I think, like I said to you before we started, like I only reach out to people that I feel there's a genuine something that I know that there's to share there. I feel an authentic message being shared. There's a lot of, again, people saying the right things and sharing the right things and things that look good. But when I guess I'm using my attunement to, do I feel, you were saying before, you feel people before you even meet them. Does that person feel, like, does that resonate with me? Mm-hmm. And I definitely felt that with you, and we've been chatting for a while, like months now and stuff. But it's been really nice to sit with you and spend time with you, but also to hear those things about you, because I've edited podcasts that you've been on, and I've listened, and I've been like, I want to ask a different. And I didn't even have the podcast as a thought then to bring it back, but I was like, if I could get her on, these are the questions that I'd ask, and I'm so grateful that I got this opportunity. So thank you.
No, thank you so much for a beautiful conversation between friends.
Yeah,
it's just sharing. Yeah, I'm grateful.
It's fun. This is one of my passions.
And when you love what you do, it works.
Yeah, and you naturally get given, like you said before, the opportunities, the people. You connect with the people and the opportunities that align with you, and I think that's, like I said, we can't share what was said before because it was a whole other conversation. But it's when you meet those people, you definitely feel it. So thank you for what you have shared, but also what you do share in the world. Where can people see all the fun things that you've got coming up?
Well, this is my awkward part. Where can you come and see me? If you'd like to experience a sound bath, I'm at the Loom still, every couple of weeks. I think my next one is, I don't know when this would be airing, but it's next week and then 2 weeks after. It's genuinely every fortnight. Generally every fortnight. I'm malfunctioning now. And I do my group, smaller, intimate gatherings and community events that I do every couple months, because they're more of like a big experience. My retreats as well. I have my next one in Bali next year, and I have an online membership that's turning into an app. It will launch in, I'm pretty sure, the first week of November.
Is that Rise?
Yeah. It's been such a journey to
even get the rebrand,
everything. It's just even that, I'm like, wow, I did it. I did a lot of it on my own. I didn't have a crazy budget to go and invest in, so I really built it in such a beautiful, slow, also hard way. It was a labor of love, but there's sound meditations on there, sound baths on there, really powerful meditations, as well as breath journeys. And I also teach breath work, so pranayama. It's not just holotropic breathing and Wim Hof breathing. There's so many different breath techniques because of all the things I've studied and knowledge I've acquired. So depending on what you want to experience, but it's just ways to align your energy. That's what I realized. It's all about alignment. Not so much focused on creating, but aligning, because everything you want already exists. You have to align yourself to become that version of you that has that experience. Yeah.
Be do have. Anyway, I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
for those that are tuning in, thank you for listening in. If anything has inspired you, just go to the links in the bio. There'll be all the different stuff to connect with Tanya. Leave, like, review, share,
All the fun
all those
Make
good
sure
things.
you subscribe.
Subscribe. Just honestly, if you're obviously listening somewhere, it might be on your phone, or you're watching on YouTube. That's also fun because you can sit in the room with us. But if wherever you are, like, go to The Conscious Podcast on Instagram, because there'll be little clips that come out and you can share that with your friends, anything that inspired you. But yeah, appreciate you being here. Take care. Until next time. Peace.